मेरो दिदी पार्टिसिपेन्ट पुगेपछि मैले सिरिज सुरु गरेँ मात्रै हुन्छ मैले सिरिज पिक्चर सुरु गरेँ हुन्छ रेडी नै छु नि हैन चार्ज कुन ओके
पछि लास्टमा हामीले क्वेसन आन्सर गर्दाखेरि कति च्याट हुन्छ स्लाइडहरुको देखिसकेको त
Hello, good afternoon. Nice to see you all after so long. है तिमीहरुको बोली चाहिँ म सुन्न सक्दिन के सबैले सुनेका होला कस्तो भइराखेको छ ठिकै छ बसाइहरु पढाइहरु तिमीहरुको है ठिकै छ होला आफू सुरक्षित रहनु है हाम्रो यस्तै छ nice to see you after so long है आज हामी चाहिँ नि नेफ्रोलोजीको टपिक सुरु गर्छौं जस्तो एभ्री ट्युजडे 12 बजेतिर हामी सुरु गर्छौं है आजको लागि चाहिँ नि अलिकति हामीले एनाटोमी र फिजियोलोजी बेसिक फिजियोलोजी सायद हामी लास्ट टाइम क्लासमा डिस्कस गरेका छौं त्यस हिसाबले बाँकी रहेको टपिकहरु कभर गरौँ भन्ने प्लान हो है कति अब रिक्यापिचुलेट गर्नुपर्ने हुन सक्छ एकचोटी आफैले रिक्यापिचुलेट गर पुरानो कुराहरु चाहिँ नि है so let's start the class है त सुरु गरौँ है त 54 55 ठिकै छ सुरु गरौँ भन्दै छ ओके एक्युट किडनी इन्जुरी है पहिला चाहिँ नि एक्युट रेनल फेलियर भन्ने चलन हुन्थ्यो when we were the medical students we were taught as the acute renal failure but that term has been a bit obsolete nowadays because ARF अथवा CRF जुन क्रोनिक रेनल फेलियर भन्छ तिनीहरु भनेको चाहिँ नि कम्प्लिटली फेलियर भइसकेपछि भन्नुको मतलब the person's kidney function has been deranged to that extent beyond which life will not be survivable without the use of the renal replacement therapy त्यसलाई चाहिँ फेलियर भन्छ त्यसले गर्दाखेरिमा अरु स्पेक्ट्रमहरु हुन्छ जुन किडनीमा परेका इन्सल्ट्सहरु हुन्छ त्यो इन्सल्ट्सले कभर गरेन भनेर चाहिँ नि the term has been coined as acute kidney injury and chronic kidney disease है र अन्तिम स्टेज जुन हुन्छ लास्ट स्टेज हुन्छ जुन बेलामा डायलाइसिस अथवा रेनल रिप्लेसमेन्ट थेरापीको जरुरी पर्छ त्यो बेलालाई बल्ल फेलियर भनिन्छ so to be clear on that side so there are so many definitions of acute kidney injury there are so many definitions है र यसलाई चाहिँ रफली हेर्दाखेरिमा चाहिँ sudden sustained and usually reversible decrease in the glomerular filtration rate occurring over a period of hours or days this is the conceptual definition है तर usually it might not be reversible at times but usually reversible CKD usually not reversible whereas AKI is usually reversible तर यो डेफिनेसन चाहिँ नि एकदमै vague definition भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरिमा यसलाई it has been changed so this is the final very precise and objective definition of AKI the KDIGO भन्छ kidney disease improving global outcome 2012 मा दिएको डेफिनेसन छ यसमा चाहिँ नि increase in the serum creatinine by more than 0.3 milligram per deciliter within 48 hours भन्दाखेरि बेसलाइन क्रियाटिनाइन बाट 0.3 milligram per deciliter को हिसाबले चाहिँ नि ओभर 48 आवर्स मा बढ्यो भन्दै कि that is called as AKI or increase in the serum creatinine by more than 1.5 times baseline भनेको 0.3 ले बढे पनि भयो अथवा बेसलाइन भन्दा 1.5 टाइम्स ले बढे पनि भयो भन्दै कि that is called as AKI over 7 days and then another is यो चाहिँ creatinine भ्यालुको आधारमा भएको डेफिनेसन भयो अर्को भनेको युरिन भोल्युमको आधारमा है युरिन भोल्युमको आधारमा पनि इट क्यान बी डिफाइन्ड एन्ड द्याट इज डिफाइन्ड इन द लाइक if the urine volume or urine output is less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 hours. त्यो भन्दा कम भयो भने पनि that is also called as AKI. So this is how AKI has been defined. हो र
एकछिन है एकैछिन वेट गर है म यहाँ हेर्छु अहिले देखिरहेछ कुनै छ नि मेसेज गर्दै कसै एकजनाले
okay. Change, right, Miraji? Right. Okay. Sorry for the technical problems. So this is the definition, right? Agyo screen dekhe na agi ali different TP hala paru. This is how AKI is defined, right? Rise in serum creatinine by more than 0.3 milligram per deciliter within 48 hours, or increase in serum creatinine by more than 1.5 times baseline over 7 days, or decrease in the urine output to less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 hours. So this is how AKI is defined. And then this is the grading and classification. The grading has been done on the basis of, again, the serum creatinine and urine volume, urine output. On the basis of serum creatinine, stage 1 is the one where serum creatinine value is between 1.5 to 1.9 or more than 0.3 milligram per deciliter. Stage 2, serum creatinine value of 2 to 2.9 times the baseline. Stage 3, 3 times baseline of the serum creatinine, or crude value of serum creatinine is more than 4 milligram per deciliter, or the person who requires dialysis, that is also called as renal replacement therapy. This बारे में फिर हम कुरा गर्छौं what are different modalities of renal replacement therapy and पछि कुरा गरौँला कुनै बेलामा. So this is how on the basis of serum creatinine AKI has been classified. त्यस्तै urine output अनुसार stage 1 मा less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for 6 to 12 hours. Stage 2 less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for more than 12 hours. And then the stage 3 is urine output less than 0.3 ml per kg per hour for more than 24 hours, or patient is anuric for more than 12 hours. So this is how the AKI has been classified on the basis of serum creatinine and urine output. And usually stage 3 patients might require dialysis, to survive life. Okay, so this is the rifle criteria. There are so many, I mean, the methods of classification, right? यसमा चाहिँ नि राइफल भनेको चाहिँ नि risk, injury, failure, loss, ESRD. So this is how the rifle criteria has been given, and these are the different criteria that you can see yourself. I don't want to go in detail. Now another is the acute kidney injury network one classification. It's a next classification according to which also it has been classified. There is, I mean, the minor variation in terms of the KDIGO criteria, but there is not much change. So you can stick on the KDIGO definition and classification, and then other classification systems also it is better to know, but we can omit those classifications also. So this is the conceptual model of AKI. Okay, so GFR is normal, and the persons without having the change in the GFR or serum creatinine, the patients can be at risk Okay, and ultimately, if that risk is not taken out, there can be damage of the kidneys, and that's how the GFR will gradually decrease, gradually go down. GFR keeps on going, and then this is the stage 3 AKI, where that is termed as the kidney failure, and if it is not intervened in time, then death can occur. So gradually damage will keep on increasing, GFR will gradually go down till the point where renal replacement therapy might be required. Okay. So these are the different definitions that are used. One is the azotemia, that is the accumulation of the nitrogenous waste products like the blood urea nitrogen. Okay, and then the creatinine. Uremia is the clinical manifestations of the azotemia. त्यसकारण uremia र azotemia नजिकैमा. यो चाहिँ azotemia भनेको biochemical characteristics भयो, whereas uremia is the clinical characteristics because of the raised urea. Oliguria, if the urine output is less than 400 ml per 24 hours, is oliguria. Anuria, कुनै bookले चाहिँ less than 50 भन्छ, कुनै bookले less than 100 भन्छ ml of urine per 24 hours. Almost 5 to 10% of the total hospitalized patients can have any form of AKI, whereas it can be increased up to 30% in the patients who are admitted in the ICU, and almost 5 to 6% of the patients who are admitted in the ICU might require renal replacement therapy. So this is the problem of the condition. It is quite common, you know, and then it can be quite hazardous, can create lots of problems, including death of the patients. So these are the classification of the etiology. So etiologically, it can, and from the management point of view, it is classified as the pre-renal AKI, intrinsic AKI, and the post-renal AKI. And then I'll go in detail what is pre-renal AKI, what is intrinsic or renal AKI, and the post-renal AKI. So among the different forms of the intrinsic AKI, acute tubular necrosis, acute interstitial nephritis, acute glomerulonephritis, acute vascular syndromes, and intratubular obstructions. So there are the different forms of intrinsic renal injury. So these are the different causes of AKI in the hospital setting. So the most common cause is the acute tubular necrosis. This is the intrinsic renal failure, and then the which is followed by the pre-renal. Pre-renal AKI is also quite common. Acute and chronic renal failure, can be obstructive nephropathy, acute interstitial nephritis, vascular causes, and the rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, RPGN. So these are the different causes that are found in the different studies of the AKI. Now let's go to the pre-renal AKI. So the pre-renal AKI by concept is that where the problem lies before the kidneys, because the kidney, whenever the last organ to get the blood supply, if there is some insult before the kidneys in terms of the decreased cardiac output, in terms of the decreased volume in the blood, in terms of the decreased plasma volume, you know, there can be cirrhosis, there can be nephrotic syndrome, heart space loss, effective intravascular volume that reaches kidneys will be significantly lower. So that once there is less circulation to the kidneys, then what happens? There will be less filtration, and that ultimately gives rise to the gradual rise in the renal parameters. Okay, so these are different causes. One is the intravascular volume depletion, that can be because of bleeding, that can be because of the GI loss or renal loss, that can be because of the loss from the skin in the patients with the bone, third space loss, poor oral intake in the patient is nil per oral, or patient having anorexia. Decreased effective circulating volume can be because of congestive heart failure, cirrhosis, nephrotic syndrome, sepsis, and then decreased flow through the renal artery, that can be because of the renal artery stenosis or occlusion, compartment syndrome, renal syndrome, hypercalcemia, pharmacologic drugs like NSAIDs, renal angiotensin receptor blockers, and then the calcineurin inhibitors. So these are the drugs that can directly cause acute tubular necrosis. And then the systemic vasodilatation, like if there is anaphylaxis reaction, in those conditions also there will be decreased effective intravascular volume, leading to decreased GFR and renal impairment. Okay, so this is the conceptual model of the glomerulus. Okay, so this is the Bowman's capsule. This is the afferent arteriole. This is efferent arteriole. This is normal actually. Okay, so if there is not much hemodynamic changes, the blood will come here, then we get filtered, and then some part will go out as the efferent arterioles, and that can form the vasa recta. यस्तो हुन्छ हैन अनि यहाँबाट जति पनि फिल्टर भइरहेको हुन्छ द्याट इज नर्मल अब कुनै किसिमको हेमोडायनामिक चेन्ज भयो जस्तो मानिलियौ someone who is getting the increased angiotensin 2, okay, if there is decreased perfusion pressure occurs in persons in home, कस्तो छ भन्दाखेरिमा यतातिर गइकन भाजोलाइटर इफेक्ट भयो प्री एफेरेन्टमा इफरेन्टमा पनि भाजोलाइटर भयो भन्दाखेरि GFR will not be that much changed. So there are certain conditions where NSAID has been given. मानिलिनु this is the efferent को हेमोडायनामिक चेन्ज भएन तर हामीले NSAID दियौं NSAID दियो भने के हुन्छ हाउ डु NSAIDs वर्क NSAIDs work by inhibiting the formation of prostaglandins. Prostaglandins have the effect of vasodilatation. जसले गर्दाखेरिमा prostaglandinले के गर्छ त भन्दाखेरिमा चाहिँ it causes all the inflammatory mediators भयो त्यसले गर्दाखेरिमा there will be vasodilatation. So because of that vasodilatation हुनुपर्ने हो prostaglandin जब हामीले NSAID दिन्छौं तब के हुन्छ त prostaglandin को inhibition हुन्छ inhibition भएपछि के हुन्छ त भन्दाखेरिमा there will be vasoconstriction of the afferent. अब afferent में vasoconstriction भएपछि there will be decreased blood supply to the kidneys. That's how GFR will be decreased. एकातिर त भयो अर्कोतिर decreased angiotensin 2 जस्तो हामीले चाहिँ ARB blockers दियौं भने के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरिमा there will be vasodilatation of the efferent arterioles. So that's how also effective intraglomerular pressure will be decreased. That's how GFR will also be decreased. So this is how the mechanism of NSAID induced and SCE-ARB induced nephrotoxicity. Going to the intrinsic AKI, the most common cause is the tubules, where there will be acute tubular necrosis like sepsis, ischemic, or the toxins. There can be problem in the interstitium in the form of the acute interstitial nephritis because of the drugs, infections, or these different forms of cancers. There can be problem in the glomerulus in the form of the acute glomerular nephritis, like that can be primary, that can be post-infectious, that can be rheumatologic, vasculitis. There can be problem in the vasculature because of the atherioembolic disease, renal artery thromboembolism, renal artery dissection, renal vein thrombosis. There can be intratubular obstruction because of the myoglobin, hemoglobin, myeloma light chains, uric acid casts, tumor lysis syndrome, drugs. Okay, so different crystals and then the pigments can be collected there, and that can cause obstruction. So these are the different causes and different classes of intrinsic AKI. Okay. So now going to summary of the causes of the AKI, there can be pre-renal azotemia because of hypovolemia, cardiac failure, or the hepatorenal syndrome. There can be renal artery problems in the form of renal artery occlusion or vasculitis. There can be small vessel disease like the thrombotic microangiopathy, renal atherioembolism, small vessel vasculitis. There can be glomerular diseases like the anti-GBM disease, lupus nephritis, post-infectious GN, infective endocarditis, and other forms of glomerular nephritis. There can be acute tubular necrosis because of ischemia, nephrotoxins, rhabdomyolysis, radiocontrast agents. There can be acute interstitial nephritis because of drugs, infection, and the systemic diseases. There can be intratubular obstruction because of the casts, drugs, and the crystals. Post-renal obstruction, that is the post-renal obstruction, can be because in the form of the bladder obstruction, tumors, renal calculi, papillary necrosis, and then the retroperitoneal fibrosis. There can be renal vein thrombosis. So these are the overall summary of the different forms of acute kidney injury. Now, going to the acute tubular necrosis, most common cause of acute tubular necrosis is sepsis, followed by ischemia and the direct toxic injury. Okay, so sepsis, there is some septic foci which causes the acute tubular necrosis. Ischemia could be because of the prolonged pre-renal agitation. This kind of sabai pre-renal AKI functional matter नहुन सक्छ. There can be anatomical changes in the kidneys. Okay, prolonged भइदियो भनेदेखि acute tubular necrosis हुन सक्ने भयो. There can be prolonged hypotension, hypovolemic shock, cardiopulmonary arrest, and the cardiopulmonary bypass. So these are the different causes of ischemic ATN. And the direct toxic injury could be because of the exogenous, like the radiocontrast media, drugs like aminoglycosides, vancomycin, amphotericin B, cisplatin, acyclovir, calcineurin inhibitors, and the different HIV medications. And the endogenous, that can be because of the pigment nephropathy, like in rhabdomyolysis and the hemolysis. Okay. Now let's go to the acute tubular necrosis. So the ST segment of the proximal tubule and the medullary thick ascending limb of Henle are particularly vulnerable to ischemic injury because of the combination of the borderline oxygen supply and the high metabolic demands. Because these parts of the loop of Henle or the other tubules are very much active in the secretion and the reabsorption. Okay, and that requires high demand of oxygen. But if there is some insult, then the insult can be devastating. So the major risk factors for AKI are old age. जति old age हुँदै गयो GFR उतनै घट्दै जान्छ. हामी थाहा पाएकै कुरा हो. Hepatic failure, atherosclerosis, hypertension, hypercalcemia, okay, perioperative cardiac dysfunction, tumor lysis syndrome, diabetes, pre-existing diabetes, because diabetes is the #1 cause for CKD. Whereas patients having diabetes can have risk factors for developing AKI also. That should be taken into consideration. Previous chronic kidney disease, renal artery stenosis, hypotension, sepsis, rhabdomyolysis. So these are the different risk factors. Medications and the drugs like NSAIDs, different NSAIDs like ibuprofen, indomethacin, diclofenac. So all these NSAIDs can cause acute kidney injury. However, low dose of aspirin that is used in the form of the antiplatelet agent in the patients with the ischemic heart disease, or use of paracetamol in the usual dose are not that much nephrotoxic. Cyclooxygenase 2 inhibitors, cyclosporin or tacrolimus, AC inhibitors and the ARBs, contrast media, aminoglycoside and amphotericin. So these are the different drugs that can be nephrotoxic. So we should always be cautious to use these medications in a person who is prone to have AKI or who has already developed acute kidney injury. Different procedures like cardiopulmonary bypass procedure, aortic pump, increased intra-abdominal pressure, large arterial catheter placement with risk of atherembolism, liver transplantation, kidney transplantation. So these are the major surgical procedures which can put the person at a risk to develop AKI. Okay. So these are the again the complications. Again कुरा भइसकेको छ हाम्रो चाहिँ नि. So again conceptual model सम्झेर कुरा गर्ने भन्दाखेरि पनि, so there is normal GFR, the person who is at risk, already damage has been started, and then the GFR has started going down, kidney failure and the death. So the first step is to have the risk assessment, and then the primary prevention can be done if there is high risk. Secondary prevention is the person already having the AKI and the further progression or progression to CKD. So we have to do the secondary prevention, and if the patient cannot survive without renal replacement therapy, we have to give the renal replacement therapy in those group of the patients. So this is the management conceptual model of AKI. So for the evaluation and diagnosis of AKI, so the distinction between the AKI and the CKD is very, very important, because हामीकोमा चाहिँ के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरिमा सीकेडी पत्ता लगाउने सबभन्दा सजिलो उपाय भनेको चाहिँ नि मोर देन 3 months को चाहिँ नि डकुमेन्टेसन भयो। त्यो डकुमेन्टेसनको मा चाहिँ नि if the person is having the raised creatinine for more than 3 months सीकेडी को लाइनमा गयो, त्यो सजिलो बाटो भयो। तर हामीकोमा हुँदैन, कसैको पनि युजुअली कसैको पनि गरेको हुँदैन। So because of that reason we don't have the baseline. That is quite problematic. That's why it is, even for the very highly experienced nephrologists and the physician, it is quite difficult to differentiate between AKI and CKD. Okay, but there are certain parameters which will help. So the foremost and the most important parameter to differentiate is the whole documentation. There are certain features like radiologic study. If the person having CKD will have a small shrunken kidneys with thinning of the cortex, that is there. Evidence of renal vascular dystrophy or laboratory tests such as normocytic anemia. So the anemia of chronic disease or renal anemia, so anemia developed that goes in favor of CKD. Right? Secondary hyperparathyroidism with hyperphosphatemia is another parameter to label as CKD, and then the patients with hypocalcemia. So these are the points which keep the patient on the diagnosis of CKD. That should be taken into consideration. So, AKI usually occurs over hours to days. Hours to days भन्छौं हामीले। CKD हुनको लागि चाहिँ more than 3 months भन्छौं। अब त्यो बीचको टाइम के त अन्त्यो? जुन हप्ता दिनदेखि ले 3 महिनासम्मको टाइम के हो त भन्दाखेरिमा another concept of acute kidney disease where there is some possibility of reversibility. More than 3 months renal impairment भयो भनेदेखि the chance of reversibility is almost negligible, almost zero. That's why this is nothing but the time frame between the AKI and CKD is another term, that is the acute kidney disease. Now, अब हामीले चाहिँ फर्स्ट एप्रोच भनेको चाहिँ नि AKI र CKD छुट्याउनलाई हामीले प्रयास गर्यौं है। अब नेक्स्ट भनेको अब AKI पत्ता लगाइसकेपछि AKI हो भने लाग्यो भनेदेखि whether this is pre-renal or this is intrinsic, के हो त्यो? अथवा ATN हो कि वो हो कि होइन? AKI pre-renal AKI हो कि renal AKI कसरी छुट्याउँदा भन्दाखेरि this is the table which very nicely explains. If the bone creatinine ratio is more than 20:1, goes in favor of pre-renal hypertension. If the urinary sodium is less than 20, भन्नुको मतलब कन्सेप्ट के हो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि प्री-रेनलमा के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरिमा किडनीमा जाने ब्लड नै कम भयो। हामीले अघि नै डिस्कस गरिसकेका छौं। किडनीमा जाने पर्फ्युजन नै कम भयो। इफेक्टिभ इन्टरभास्कुलर भोल्युम और इफेक्टिभ रेनल पर्फ्युजन इज रिड्युस्ड। ओके, सो जब त्यहाँ चाहिँ इफेक्टिभ भोल्युम नै कम जान्छ त जिउले के गर्छ भन्दाखेरि जति पनि गएको छ भएको जम्मै चिजलाई तान्न खोज्छ आफूसित रिअब्जर्ब गर्न खोज्छ। Because of that increased reabsorption, the urea reabsorption is more than creatinine because the molecular weight of urea is quite low in comparison to creatinine. त्यसले गर्दा सबै creatinine reabsorb नहुन सक्छ तर almost सबै urea reabsorb हुन्छ। जब त्यो reabsorb हुने हुँदाखेरिमा युरियाको भ्यालु चाहिँ नि ब्लडमा चाहिँ बढ्छ। त्यसले गर्दाखेरिमा so the bone creatinine ratio will be raised. Urine मा सोडियम फाल्न कम गर्छ, जिउले तान्न खोज्छ त्यसलाई पनि, किन हाइपोभोलिमिया भइरहेको हुन्छ, सोडियम तान्नु पर्यो। That's why urinary sodium will be reduced. Urine osmolality will be increased. Okay, fractional excretion of sodium, this is one very very important. Fractional excretion of sodium will be less than 1 in terms in the patients with the pre-renal AKI. Okay, patients, if they are treated with volume or fluid, then creatinine improves with intravascular volume. And there can be very negligible sediments, whereas these are the parameters of oliguric AKI. Now, the fractional excretion of sodium is calculated as the FeNA, that is a fractional excretion of sodium is the value of urinary sodium into serum creatinine divided by serum sodium into urinary creatinine into 100%. If it is less than 1, then this is prerenal. If it is more than 2, then this is the ATM, acute tubular necrosis or intrinsic renal failure. Okay. Now, as we have discussed, serum creatinine has been considered as one of the reliable, easy method of calculation of renal function. However, that might not be sufficient in all conditions, because to have rise in serum creatinine, the kidney function should be deranged to almost 70 to 80%. The damage भइसकेको हुन्छ serum creatinine हुनको बेलासम्म. त्यसो भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरिमा there are certain novel biomarkers of AKI like neutrophil gelatinase associated lipocalin and GAL, interleukin 18, kidney injury molecule, cystatin C, liver type fatty acid binding protein. Okay, so these are the different novel biomarkers. What are the novel biomarkers of AKI? So we have to mention those things and we have to elaborate in some sentences. Now, going to the management. So the first one is the primary preventive measures for AKI. That is the optimization of volume status and the hemodynamic status. Fluid challenge should be continued as long as there is hemodynamic improvement. Right? जबसम्म चाहिँ हेमोडायनामिकली इम्प्रुभ गर्न सकिन्छ त्यो बेलासम्म चाहिँ you have to give fluid until unless it is contraindicated. जस्तै कार्डियक आउटपुट कम भएको छ भने you cannot give more fluid. Acetonic crystalloid should be used instead of synthetic, like the synthetic colloids हुन्छ तिनीहरुको सट्टामा चाहिँ you have to give the isotonic salines. Vasopressors should be initiated to maintain the mean arterial pressure of 65, and the noradrenaline is the first choice of the vasopressors. Inotropic agents like dobutamine should be administered if the myocardial dysfunction is or ongoing signs of hypoperfusions are present. Prevention of drugs and nephrotoxic illness. So these are the different factors that we have discussed. Okay, and like for that the correct estimation of GFR and adjust the dose and monitor the renal function during the therapy of the nephrotoxic drugs. Okay, AC inhibitors and the ARBs and the NSAIDs that I have discussed. AC ARBs will cause the vasodilatation of the efferent arterioles. NSAIDs cause the vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole. Right? The afferent भनेको किडनीमा लाने, efferent भनेको किडनीबाट बाहिर लाने. So किडनीमा लाने पाइप चाहिँ सानो बनाइदिएपछि त्यहाँ पर्फ्युजन कम भयो. That is caused by NSAIDs. नबिर्स है त. So अनि बाहिर जाने नै ठुलो बनाइदिएपछि भएको जम्मै बाहिर गयो. अनि त्यहाँ पर्फ्युजन हुन पाएन. That is caused by the AC inhibitors. So this is how. So in patients with increase in the serum creatinine of more than 30% after the initiation of AC inhibitors or ARBs should be suspected if there is bilateral renal artery stenosis, stenosis of the renal artery in a solitary kidney, diffuse interrenal small vessel disease, or generalized volume depletion. NSAIDs should be avoided in CKD and intravascular volume depletion because they inhibit the cyclooxygenase, which blocks the prostaglandin-induced vasodilatation of the afferent arteriole, potentially reducing GFR and renal block. Again, repetition. Aminoglycosides can cause almost AKI almost in 5 to 10 days after initiation of the treatments. The type of AKI is typically non-oliguric and associated with the decreased urine. Because of nephrotoxicity, ototoxicity, and vestibular toxicity, AKI carrier guidelines have recommended avoiding the use of aminoglycosides in the patients with AKI and those at risk. Once daily administration can decrease the tubular cell toxicity by reducing the drugs taken up by the proximal tubular cells. त्यसमा सकेसम्म युज गर्दै नगर्ने. यदि गर्नुपर्ने भयो भनेदेखि पनि लो डोजमा र once a day. मतलब धेरै फ्रिक्वेन्सीमा नदिने. जुन हाम्रो चाहिँ बिडी दिने हुन्छ एमिकासिन्सहरु त्यो चाहिँ नदिने ट्युमर लाइसिस सिन्ड्रोम जस्तो ट्युमर भयो ट्युमरको चाहिँ लाइसिस भयो हैन त्यो ट्युमर सेल्स मर्यो भने त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ यूरिक एसिड निस्किन सक्छ क्याल्सियम फस्फोरस निस्किन सक्छ दैट कैन कज द डाइरेक्ट renal tubular injury. So adequate hydration with isotretinoin is initiated 2 days before the chemotherapy or the patient is undergoing angiogram or angioplasty. मेरा सिस्टर अपलोड कर रहा है टाइम yes. If urine output decreases despite the adequate fluid intake, or loop diuretics should be added. So usually, loop diuretics or AKI form diuretics itself can cause pre-renal AKI. This should be taken that into consideration. Rhabdomyolysis for that adequate hydration is very very important, and the sodium bicarbonate can be used in certain conditions. For the congestion-induced nephropathy, adequate hydration, N-acetylcysteine can be used. So the prevention of the congestion-induced nephropathy, again the same thing: adequate hydration, and adequate hydration, followed by N-acetylcysteine. Okay, I don't want to go in detail now. So loop diuretics are not effective in terms of prevention or treatment of acute kidney injury unless the patient has volume overload. So the treatment, general measures, careful assessment, and the etiology of the renal dysfunction should be found out to maintain the adequate hemodynamic status. Nephrotoxic agents should be avoided, including intravascular radioconductance dye, and then the other dyes that can cause the further renal injuries. Volume overload should be tackled in time. For that, all the intakes should be minimized. Loop diuretics can be initiated, right? The loop diuretic itself can be the cause of acute kidney injury, and it does not have any role in the management. However, if there is volume overload, if the patient develops the features of volume overload in forms of the pulmonary edema, at that condition, patient might require loop diuretics. Okay, but don't give the potassium sparing diuretics. Hyperkalemia chance is quite high in patients with renal impairment. Morphine and nitrates can be used to alleviate the respiratory symptoms in urgent situation, and if there is no response, patient requires dialysis. Hyperkalemia. So these are the different methods of hyperkalemia management. The first one is the calcium to be given 10 ml of 10% of the calcium gluconate. This is the cardiac muscle stabilizer. It does not cause the potassium reduction. Sources of oral or IV potassium should be identified and removed. Shifting of potassium to the extracellular space to the intercellular space by the infusion of glucose and saline, sodium bicarbonate, and the salbutamol nebulization. Potassium excretion should be increased by administration of saline, loop diuretics, and the cations exchange agents like KXLET. If there is no response, patient requires emergency hemodialysis. So this is the hyperkalemia management. Management of hyperkalemia. Okay, hyponatremia is quite common in the patients with AKIs. That should be taken into consideration. That can be aggravated by the volume overload as in the form of the hypervolemic hyponatremia or use of diuretics. Calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium disorders should be managed, which is the hyperphosphatemia and hypocalcemia are quite common, but not as common as in CKD. Okay. Acid-base disorders, the metabolic acidosis is quite common. The high NRK metabolic acidosis is quite common. Okay. And then the nutrition, because these patients are very much prone to have malnutrition because of the low intake, low absorption. Because of that, we have to take that into consideration, and the almost 20 to 30 kilocalories per kg per day of calories required, and the protein intake is almost like a normal 0.1 to 1 gram per kg per day of protein should be given. Now, this is probably the final slide where there is the indication of renal replacement therapy. This is quite important. So there are absolute indications and the relative indications. The absolute indication of renal replacement therapy or hemodialysis are uremic encephalopathy and uremic pericarditis. whereas the relative indications are the volume overload that is not responding to the medical treatment, hyperkalemia that is not responding to medical treatment, and metabolic acidosis that is not responding to medical treatment. So these are the different indications of RF. त्यसकारणले गर्दा क्रियाटिनिन बढ्दैन, युरिया मात्रै बढ्दैमा, कुनै पनि बायोकेमिकल प्यारामिटर छैन इन्डिकेसन्समा। त्यसले गर्दाखेरिमा एकेआई को पेशेन्टहरुमा इफ दिस क्लिनिकल प्यारामिटर्स, त्यसकारणले गर्दा डायलिसिस कुनै बेलामा सुरु गर्ने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ is guided by the clinical parameters rather than the biochemical parameters. That should be noted. Right? So I think that ends the presentation. So just to summarize, we discussed about the definition, we discussed about the classification, we discussed about the etiologies, we discussed about the different classifications of AKI in the form of pre-renal, renal, and the post-renal. We discussed about the management line in the form of the identification. In the identification, first one is the identification of AKI and differentiation it from the CKD, and then the classification into the different types of the AKI, and then the supporting measures in the form of the fluid restriction, treatment of the cause. You know, AKI ma सबभन्दा इम्पोर्टेन्ट चीज भनेको चाहिँ ट्रिटमेन्ट अफ द कज नै हो। के कज छ, स्पेशली प्रिरेनल एकेआई मा त कज के ट्रिटमेन्ट गर्ने। त्यसपछि अनि ट्रिटमेन्ट अफ कम्प्लिकेसन्स, भोल्युम ओभरलोड छ भनेदेखि फ्लुइड कम दिने, डायरेटिक्स दिने। हाइपरकालेमिया छ भने हाइपरकालेमियाको म्यानेजमेन्ट गर्ने। सो एसिडोसिस र एसिडोसिसको ट्रिटमेन्ट गर्ने, मालन्युट्रिसन प्रिभेन्सन गर्ने र कुनै किसिमको चाहिँ मिनरल एब्नर्मालिटिजहरु छ, हाइपरक्याल्सिमिया छ, हाइपरफस्फेटेमिया छ भनेदेखि those things should be tackled, and if the patient does not improve with these conditions and the life is not possible with the deranged kidney function, then those group of patients need to be taken for dialysis. And for the indications of the dialysis, rather than the biochemical parameters, there are certain clinical parameters we discussed. If there is uremic pericarditis, uremic encephalopathy, hyperkalemia not responding to medical treatment, volume overload not responding to medical treatment, and then the last one, the metabolic acidosis not responding to medical treatment. So thank you so much.